You ever notice how some people get rich fast? Like one year they're broke, next year they're everywhere. It's not luck. It's not hard work. It's control. The world doesn't reward the ones who grind the most. It rewards the ones who pull the strings. While most people play by rules written to keep them small, a few learn how to bend the game. Machiavelli called it power. I call it the fastest way to get rich. And it starts the moment you stop thinking like a worker and start moving like a ruler. Part 1. The illusion of hard work. You've been told your whole life that if you just work hard, you'll make it. But look around. Do you really believe that anymore? The world is full of people who grind every single day, yet they stay broke, tired, and invisible. Meanwhile, someone else does less work, but somehow ends up in a mansion. It's not because they're smarter. It's because they're positioned differently. See, the system was never built to reward effort. It was built to reward leverage. That's what Machiavelli saw centuries ago. Power sits at the top not because it works harder, but because it controls how everyone else works. And that's the first uncomfortable truth about money. The game isn't about effort, it's about control. Think about it. If effort alone built wealth, construction workers would own cities. Teachers would sit on Forbes lists. But they don't, because they sell their time and time doesn't scale. Every hour you sell is an hour gone forever. You can't multiply hours. You can only multiply impact. And impact doesn't come from working harder. It comes from owning the system that makes others work for you. Machiavelli wrote for princes, not peasants. Because he knew, one man commanding 10 creates more wealth than 10 men sweating alone. That's how CEOs rise. That's how investors grow richer, even when they're asleep. They've built leverage, systems, capital, and influence that do the labor for them. But let's bring this down to now. You know that guy who started a small cleaning company? At first, he was doing every job himself, sweeping floors, cleaning windows. Then one day he stopped cleaning and started hiring. He built a team. He controlled who worked, where, and how. A year later, he wasn't mopping. He was managing 5 crews across the city. That's leverage. Same skill, different position in the game. Now compare that to someone working 9 to 5, waiting for a raise that barely beats inflation. They're told, be patient, save slowly. But patience doesn't build empires, and positioning does. The world doesn't pay you for how much you do. It pays you for how much you direct. And this is where most people stay stuck, inside what I call the comfort cage. It feels safe, a paycheck, benefits, routine. But that safety has a price. Your prime years. You trade your energy, your youth, your creativity for security that disappears the moment you stop showing up. You're not building wealth. You're maintaining someone else's, and they'll thank you for your loyalty. While you wonder why the ladder never ends, Machiavelli would have laughed at this idea of slow, honest wealth. He'd say, the man who hesitates waits forever. Because the rich don't wait. They move. They take risks while others seek permission. They know every empire begins with one bold decision: to stop being an employee of someone else's vision and start being the architect of your own. So if you want to move fast, really fast, here's your first step. Stop thinking like labor. Start thinking like leverage. Ask yourself, what am I building that will work for me even when I'm asleep? That could be a system, a product, a platform, a piece of content, anything that scales beyond your time. Because that's where freedom starts. Not when you work harder, but when your ideas work harder than you do. That's the Machiavellian secret the wealthy never say out loud. They don't chase money. They position themselves so money chases them. Part 2. The power of perception. Let's talk about something most people never notice. Money follows attention. It doesn't chase talent, kindness, or effort. It follows whoever controls how the world sees them. That's why 2 people can sell the same thing. One gets ignored, the other becomes a millionaire. It's not the product. It's the perception. Machiavelli understood this long before social media existed. He said it's not enough to be powerful. You have to appear powerful. Because people don't act on truth. They act on belief. And belief can be shaped, controlled, engineered. That's the second step to fast wealth: master perception. In today's world, your image is your leverage. The person who looks in control, will always attract more opportunity than the person quietly grinding behind the scenes. You see it online every day. One guy posts his progress, tells his story, builds a brand, people line up to support him. Another guy stays humble, works just as hard, but nobody knows he exists. The difference? Visibility. Attention is a currency, and right now it's the most valuable one. If you control attention, you control the flow of money. Look at the top entrepreneurs, influencers, even investors. They're not just selling products, they're selling belief. They've learned to package confidence, authority, and motion. Because when people feel you're rising, they want to be part of it. They follow, they invest, they promote. That's perception working as leverage. Here's a small real-world example. There was a young guy named Ryan who started flipping small electronics from his apartment. At first, he'd post nothing, just quietly buy and sell. Then he started sharing what he was doing online, showing stacks of orders, talking about lessons learned, giving people a peek behind the curtain. Overnight, people started asking him for mentorship. He turned that perception into a paid course. Within months, he made more from teaching than flipping. Same skill, different strategy. That's the Machiavellian move. To realize how others see you is as powerful as what you actually do. But there's a catch. You can't fake it forever. Perception works best when it's rooted in progress. People can sense motion. They can smell stagnation. So every time you take a bold step, document it. Show it, amplify it. Because silence is a currency killer. When people don't hear from you, they forget you. When they see you move, they believe in your momentum. The wealthy understand this game instinctively. They attend events not just to learn, but to be seen learning. They post wins not just to flex, but to remind the market, I'm still rising. That's not vanity. That's strategy. Because every impression adds weight to their influence, and influence is leverage in motion. Now, most people avoid this because they fear judgment. They think, what will people say if I promote myself? Here's the truth, they'll talk anyway. They'll criticize if you fail and envy if you win. So why not give them something worth talking about? Perception is not deception, it's framing. It's how you present truth in a way that amplifies impact. Even Machiavelli said, a prince must appear merciful, loyal, humane, and courageous, whether he always is or not. Not because it's fake, but because humans follow the story, not the data. So build your story, craft your presence, talk like the person you're becoming, not the one you've been. Show your moves before they're perfect. Show your wins while they're still small. Because momentum attracts momentum. And here's the real reward. Once you master perception, people start projecting greatness onto you. They'll see potential you haven't even reached yet. They'll offer deals, invitations, collaborations, not because you asked, but because you seemed ready. That's the Machiavellian advantage. To shape how the world sees you before it decides who you are. So remember this, money loves confidence, opportunity loves noise, and attention loves speed. If you can learn to control all three, you don't chase wealth anymore. You magnetize it. Part 3, the leverage game. Here's where the rich separate from the grinders. They don't ask, how can I do more? They ask, how can I multiply this? That single shift from effort to leverage changes everything, because the truth is you can't outwork time. There are only 24 hours in a day. But leverage? That bends time in your favor. It lets you do something once and get paid 1,000 times. Machiavelli would have called it strategic power. In modern terms, it's simple. You build or control systems that keep producing value even when you're not there. Think about this. The janitor works harder than the CEO, but the CEO earns more because he controls machines, people, and decisions. He's not paid for sweat, he's paid for scale. And that's leverage in motion. Most people never touch it because they're addicted to effort. They feel safe when they're busy. They equate movement with progress. But a hamster runs all day too and ends up nowhere. You can grind your whole life and still be broke if you're grinding inside someone else's system. So the question isn't how hard do I work? It's who does my work multiply for? If the answer isn't you, you're building someone else's throne. There are 4 forms of leverage every modern Machiavellian master learns to use: money, people, knowledge, and attention. Get good at one and you'll move faster. Stack all four and you'll look unstoppable. Money, poor people fear debt. Rich people use it. They know capital isn't just cash, it's a catapult. While one guy saves for years to open a store, another gets investors, opens 5 and dominates the market. Both have the same dream, only one understands leverage. And people, you can't build an empire alone. The world's biggest names didn't get there solo. They learned how to influence, delegate, and command. One man with loyal soldiers will always outrun 1,000 solo hustlers. Your job isn't to do everything. It's to inspire others to move in the direction you choose. Knowledge, information is leverage, but only if it's used fast. Most people drown in podcasts and books, but never act. The wealthy spot trends early, move early, and cash in before others even wake up. It's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing something first. Attention. This one's new, but it's the most explosive. If people are watching you, they're trusting you. And if they trust you, they'll follow, buy, or invest. Attention can turn a single idea into an empire overnight. It's why influencers rise faster than founders, because attention is leverage in its purest form. Here's the catch though. Leverage demands responsibility. You can't just grab power. You have to wield it with strategy. If you scale chaos, it multiplies chaos. But if you scale clarity, it multiplies wealth. Let's look at a quick example. A barber cuts 10 heads a day. Then he trains 5 barbers, rents them chairs, and takes a percentage. Now his income scales without more hours. Later he builds an online course on cutting and branding. Now his knowledge earns while he sleeps. That's leverage stacked. Labor, people, knowledge, attention. Every level you climb frees more of your time. And the moment you realize time isn't meant to be spent, it's meant to be multiplied, you start thinking like the rich. So here's your move. Ask yourself, what can I build once that pays me forever? Then focus everything on that. Because the fastest path to wealth isn't found in doing more. It's in learning to make less effort, do more work. That's not luck. That's strategy. That's Machiavellian leverage. Part 4. The resistance test. Here's a rule the rich never say out loud. The moment you start rising fast, you'll make enemies just as fast. And that's not failure. That's proof you're leveling up because power exposes people. When you move bold, the cautious feel threatened. When you start taking risks, the ones who never dared will try to slow you down. They'll whisper. They'll mock. They'll call you lucky, greedy, arrogant. Anything that makes them feel safer about staying small. Machiavelli warned rulers about this centuries ago. He said, the moment you gain power, expect resistance. Because power by its nature makes others uncomfortable. It reminds them of what they could be if they had your nerve. So here's the test. When you start catching hate, don't flinch, smile. You're finally being noticed by the people who never notice the ordinary. See, most people think the path to success is clean, like a smooth climb up the ladder. But real power feels like a war zone. You'll lose friends. You'll outgrow circles. You'll get called things you're not. That's part of the tuition. The average man folds under judgment because he's addicted to approval. He wants to win and be liked. But the wealthy, they gave up that dream early. They learned that approval is the leash that keeps lions tame. If you're scared to offend, you'll never lead. And if you can't lead, you'll always follow someone else's orders, usually from someone less capable than you. So when you rise, rise knowing this. You will be misunderstood. You will be misquoted. And you will be underestimated until you win. Then they'll say, I always knew you'd make it. That's the rhythm of power. First they ignore you. Then they resist you. Then they copy you. Then they call you sir. Machiavelli would tell you not to waste a second explaining yourself to the crowd, because the crowd doesn't understand speed. They understand comfort. And when you move fast, you make them feel slow. They'll project their fear onto you, try to pull you back down, not out of hate, but out of habit. So what do? You don't stop to argue. You don't slow down to prove a point. You double your pace. You let your results speak the language they can't debate. Success. Every empire faces resistance. Every rise triggers chaos. It's the world's way of testing your conviction. Will you crumble under criticism, or will you let it sharpen you? When people talk behind your back, it means you're ahead. When they try to sabotage you, it means you've become a threat. And when they can't stop you, they'll try to join you. That's how you know you've crossed the line from dreamer to dominator. So don't chase acceptance. Chase momentum. Let the noise fuel you. Every insult, every rumor, every jealous glance, it's energy. Convert it. Because once you pass this test, something changes in you. You stop needing validation. You start creating gravity. People begin to orbit around your movement. Your name carries weight. Your silence becomes louder than their opinions. And that's when you realize you're not just building wealth anymore. You're building influence. The kind that bends rooms when you enter them. The kind that makes opportunities find you before you even ask. That's the Machiavellian truth. Power attracts enemies, but it also attracts destiny. If no one's pushing back, you're probably standing still. So keep moving, keep building, keep provoking, because resistance isn't the obstacle. It's the signal. It's the world's way of saying, you're finally playing big enough to matter. Part 5, the endgame. From player to powermost, people die chasing money. A smaller group learns how to make it, but the rarest kind. They stop chasing it entirely and start commanding it. That's the final stage of this whole Machiavellian path. Not just being rich, being untouchable. See, the game doesn't end when you make money. It ends when money starts moving because you move. When your thoughts shift markets. When your signature changes the direction of other people's lives. That's not about having wealth. That's about having weight. Because money is only paper until someone powerful decides what it's worth. Power gives it meaning. And that's what Machiavelli understood centuries ago. People don't follow money. They follow control. They follow whoever can make them feel safe, certain, or significant. Once you learn to shape that feeling, the game stops being about survival. It becomes about design. Let's break this down. At the bottom, people trade time for money. At the middle, people trade skills for money. At the top, people trade ideas for control. That last one, that's the sweet spot. Because ideas scale faster than any human can run. They don't need food, rest, or motivation. They just need strategy. Look at history. Every empire, from Rome to Silicon Valley, was built by someone who understood this. They didn't just build businesses. They built systems. Rome built roads that made trade flow their way. Tech giants built platforms that made data flow their way. Different century, same pattern. Control the system and the world pays you rent. So if you want true freedom, stop asking how to make more money. Start asking, what system can I control? What process can I own that others depend on? What rule can I write that others unknowingly follow? That's the transition from player to power. Because when you're still playing, you need permission. When you're power, you give it. And the people who get here, they don't look busy. They look calm. Because chaos now works for them, not against them. They've turned pressure into gravity. They attract everything others chase. You ever notice how the most powerful people are quiet? They don't post every win. They don't explain their moves. They understand that silence builds mystique. And mystique builds influence. The moment you become predictable, you become replaceable. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." People misread that line. He wasn't glorifying cruelty. He was warning leaders, depend on respect, not emotion. Because emotions fade, respect endures. And respect comes from results. So as your power grows, stop chasing validation. Start proving yourself to people who couldn't build what you're building. The moment you start doing things to impress, you've already lost leverage. The moment you do things to influence, you've gained it back. And influence is the real currency of this century. It decides who gets seen, who gets paid, who gets protected. Attention used wisely turns into wealth. Wealth used wisely turns into legacy. And legacy, that's wealth that can't be stolen. But remember, every ruler faces one last trap, complacency. The moment you think you've made it, the game quietly resets underneath you. The same forces that helped you rise start looking for your replacement. That's why the best stay hungry even at the top. They reinvent. They study new power structures. They adapt faster than the next generation can catch up. That's how you stay relevant when others fade. It's not about holding your throne. It's about making it evolve. So here's the truth most people never accept. You don't really win this game. You outlast it. You stay in motion when others retire into comfort. You keep creating while they start consuming. You remain unpredictable while they become predictable. And that's the Machiavellian endgame. Not to be the richest man in the room, but to be the one who built the room itself. Money can buy you freedom for a few years. Power can buy you peace for a lifetime. And real power, the kind that bends time, people, and systems, comes from knowing this. You don't need permission to build your empire. You just need precision and patience, because fortune doesn't come to the loudest. It comes to the most strategic. So the next time life tempts you to play small, remember this: Machiavelli never wrote for the crowd. He wrote for the rulers hiding inside the crowd, the ones ready to take control of the chaos instead of running from it. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's why you're still listening. Because somewhere deep down, you don't just want to make money. You want to matter, and that's the real secret. When you matter enough, money stops being your goal and starts becoming your side effect. Closing. At some point, you stop chasing and start choosing. You stop begging life for chances and start creating them. That's when the noise fades, the opinions, the doubts, the fear, and all that's left is silence. The kind before something big happens. You'll lose people. You'll lose comfort. But you'll gain something rarer: clarity. Clarity about who you are and what you're building. And when that happens, money won't impress you anymore. Control will. Freedom will. Peace will. So walk like you own the storm. Move like your future's already watching. Because the world doesn't bow to dreamers. It bends for the ones who dare to play the game differently. That's the Machiavellian way. Not just to live rich, but to live in command.